Hopkinton School District Board meeting. We have much of our board present today. We have with us Jim O'Brien, Norm Goupel, Rob Nato, myself, Andrea Folsom, Superintendent Mike Flynn, Business Administrator Michelle Clark, and Rick, I forget your last name. Barnes, thank you, who will be joining us in regards to the strategic plan later on. So we also have joining us virtually Dulcie LaPoma. So board, we need to make a motion and vote to allow Dulcie to join us this evening virtually.
I would move that we allow Dulcie to join us from her lovely location by the ocean.
I'll gradually make the second because I'm jealous.
All right, any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, hearing none. Dulcie, you're in.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so we'll start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Mr. Carrozza.
Oh.
All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, so, oh good, Jim's letting in more people. Is there a way for us to prop that door open?
There's probably a wedge over there.
Turn knob.
I'll get James to come down.
Jim got it.
Did you unlock it, or at least prop it? Great. Okay, our door is unlocked. You just have to turn something to get in. So we have one set of regular meeting minutes and two sets of non-public meeting minutes to approve tonight. So is there a motion to approve the school board regular meeting minutes from April 12th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
All right, motion carries. And then we have two sets.
So one's hard copy, and then the other one is digital online. So Jim, Norm, do you want to pass that to Jim? Okay. And then Dulcie's going to have to abstain from the hard copy vote. So two different votes, one for hard copy, and then one for the digital.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to start with the digital non-public meeting minutes. So is there a motion to approve the digital/online available non-public meeting minutes from April 12th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. And then is there a motion to approve the hard copy, which we've passed around to the four board members present here today, non-public meeting minutes from April 12th, 2022?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And Dulcie's going to abstain.
Yep.
All right. So I believe that our student reps are off and running tonight with baseball and other commitments. So we don't have them joining us today. It's getting towards the end of the school year, so that's totally understandable. But I'm wondering if there are any comments from the board this evening. No? Yeah?
Yeah,
Great.
sure. So it's Teacher Appreciation Week, so I just wanted to extend, every day is appreciation for our teachers, but just a huge thank you to them. It was great walking the high school, seeing all the signs around. I don't know if Carl Martin and Maple Street have that, but they do great. But just a huge thank you for all they do for our students and everyone in the buildings. Last thing is, I think Andrea and I were at the show of Robin Hood. I gotta say your daughter did amazing at her performance, and it was great. It was really great to see all the kids, and Amanda's child was Robin Hood. He was great, and it was just great that everyone was in there having a great time, and the kids were well prepared, and just I hope this board at some capacity recognizes directors for that, because they really spend a lot of hours on the kids and brought out the best in them. And I definitely know my kid has a future in theater, and just a huge thank you to them.
Great. Rob, you got anything?
Great.
All right. I don't either. All right, so we are going to move right along into current business. So first up, we have the Hess renomination.
Thank you.
slate.
I'm going to steal Jim's wording before where he called them Hopkinton's essential staff. I think that'll stick with me forever. But we are at that point of the year where you have moved forward professional staff last meeting on the 12th. And now we're asking for you to renominate and approve the list as presented for our Hopkinton support staff, which, if you have any questions, would have to be in non-public. If not, at that point, we would move forward, and with the new contract that's going to go into place next year, the business office would work on finalizing those contracts and getting it out to that staff. So, any questions on the renomination?
I guess, not that about anyone personnel, but is there any spots you're still searching for?
So we'll get to personnel later, but right now there's going to be 2 at Maple Street, right? Because we have a plan. Bill, anyone? Yeah, and actually at high school, I think we're good. So we're looking really good.
Great. All right. So is there a motion to approve the Hess renomination slate as presented this evening?
Second.
Any discussion? Great, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that passes.
Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
I will use that for the rest of my career. They are the most essential for what they do on a day-to-day basis. So we appreciate that and look forward to the transition to the new contract, which we can all agree have some substantial upgrades for people. So looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Great. All right, moving right along, we have an update from Harold Martin School.
All right, so this is going to be a difficult evening, I think, for the next 20 minutes or so. Yeah, you just see how
The
long it
next
goes.
2 hours.
But at the same time, I don't know, I can't be more excited. It's one of those weird things that goes on. First one we're going to talk about is Harold Martin, and I've said it to you since I met you. You make sure you do what's best for you and your wife and your grandkids and your kids. And that next, I know you don't like when I use this word, but that next step for this at least is retirement. I know you have a lot of things cooking and you got a lot of irons in the fire, which you're going to be outstanding at, but you've been here forever. I don't even want to put a year on it because it's forever. So we're kind of making it its own thing because it's that big of a deal, but Bill has officially put his letter in for retirement, and I wanted to invite him up to speak to his time here in whatever you'd like to talk about. So, Bill.
Just in case I made it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's difficult to talk about. It's 22 years, which is hard to believe. When I arrived here, I was 39, and never thought I'd be here for 22 years. I mean, you thought, okay, I'll work X amount of years, I'll move on to a bigger place, maybe central office. And then as time went on, I worked in a few districts, I realized what a special place this is. We say that all the time, We use words like the Hopkinton factor when we talk about either staff or kids or whatever. But it really is a different place. It's full of caring staff, really smart staff, a community that really cares. During the whole tough pandemic time, I mean, I'm not saying everybody was perfect, right? It was a hard time. But compared to other towns, compared to other situations, and I've talked to Mike about this, it's just been a wonderful place to work. And the advantage for me is that the town, the school boards, the superintendents, the community has allowed me to grow as a leader, both inside Harold Martin, and I've had so many great opportunities outside of Hopkinton. And I've never felt bored. I mean, it's always been a new adventure, a new challenge, and I've always felt cared for. In other towns, when the school board calls or the superintendent calls, it's like, oh man, superintendents on the phone. I have never, ever felt that way. And you have no idea what a nice feeling that is as a principal to know, even when you screw up, you know, you're going to have someone that has your back. And I've always felt that way. I felt that way with Mike for the short time I worked with him. And I felt that way for Dick Ayers, Brian Blake, and Steve Chamberlain, and all the boards that have been here in Hopkinton. It's been just an incredible experience. Nearly everything I know about education has come from my time in Hopkinton, even though I had a career before this. You know, and I'm not really retiring. I'm really going to be working a lot. I'm going to be collecting retirement, and as some of you know, that's a good thing. And it's hard when you hit 60, which I'm now at, because you get not quite 2/3 of your salary. So it's hard to say no to that. Rob knows. When you have other things you want to do or could do as well. So my main gig is I'm going to be working for Bill Preble. Some of you know Bill. Bill's been a professor at NEC forever. He's done some work in the district. He's taught a course. I've done side hustles with him forever. And I've taught with them. I've taught workshops with him. I've done other things. He runs a company, a side hustle company called the Center for School Culture and Learning. And so we're going to be going into schools. We already have a couple gigs lined up, working K-12 in various districts to look at, you know, how can their school culture be improved. And Bill has some great data that he collects. And then it's just, a lot of it's common sense, but sometimes you need an outside person to come in and help you develop that. So it's going to be a big piece of what I'll be doing. And I'll be teaching at NEC again, a little bit of Keene probably. And then I got a couple other things that aren't definite yet, which I hope are good. I mean, for the first time in my life, though, I'm a little worried about my paycheck. I mean, it's kind of not a bad feeling to go out and say, well, you know, I'm an entrepreneur now. And that's a good feeling. I'm also hoping to have some of my weekends back. That's a big piece. I have truly almost loved the work too much, because I think, and Mike and I have talked about this, and Amy and I for years have talked about how you throw yourself into the job, and before you know it, you don't have many Saturdays that you have with your family. So that'll be really nice. So that's really about it. Just I can't thank you enough, this board and all the boards, for just giving me this opportunity. It's been easily and always will be the favorite part of my career. The 22 years, nothing's going to beat it as much as I'm going to like my life, I think, coming up, and nothing was quite like it before this. So that's all I have. I could talk for obviously hours, but
So don't forget the
Yep.
retirement dinner night. Bill will be honored at that night. Probably be the last speaker to go. So.
Oh, I'm speaking. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm not uncomfortable with that.
Someone will be speaking for you.
Oh, good. Thanks.
And we'll make sure we take care of you. But I just know from the minute I started here, I'll say the equity that you've garnered here has been pretty clear. So it's going to be life-changing for that building. You know what I mean? And so we have to make sure we take care of them and transition and do that. But I've only known you a short time, and you've had an impact on me, so thank you for that.
Thank you.
Any
Questions?
remarks from the board? Yeah.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
There's a lot to do on the other side, Bill. You'll have a blast.
I may be giving you a call.
You might end up on a school board, you never know.
I've actually thought about it, honestly. The Deerfield School Board, maybe, watch out.
There you go.
If you think about how many kids you've seen start their education
Yep.
under your watch,
Right.
I couldn't even give you a number, probably close to 6,000 maybe? I have no
Who
idea.
knows?
But I just want to say thank you, for all that you've done for the district. All my kids started with you. You were great with all parents and communication, and it really said a lot about your character. On a personal level, we completed a facilities project together, and I'm still going to need to pick your brain on that. And as someone who really cared about Harold Martin, I really want to say thank you for what you've done for that building, and really leading the facilities project to make sure that we deliver a promise to the community. You will be missed, but we definitely wish you the best in your
Thank you.
next endeavors.
And on my personal note, I know that when I was moving back to New Hampshire, meeting with you was one of the things that sealed the deal for us to move to Hopkinton. So you will forever be an important person in my life as helping me make this decision. And thank you so much for all that you've done.
I'm glad
for
you
the
moved here.
district. Yeah, me too.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Oh,
Thanks, Bill.
Dulcie? Oh, she says thank you, Bill. I think she's muted, and she waves.
You're welcome, Dulcie.
So,
There you go.
awesome.
All right.
There you go. Great. Thanks, Phil.
Thank you.
Man. All right. It continues.
All right. Harold Martin. Kidding, it's over. Maple Street. So, whole different level of excitement. From the minute I met Amy, same thing. I knew that she was meant for bigger things. I think that was pretty evident within the first question she asked me on Zoom. I knew that she was detail-oriented and strictly looking for answers and wanted to make sure that it all aligned. So it's with a heavy heart, I'm losing a Pittsburgher. I was going to bring my terrible towel and everything, but again, retirement's so far away from me, Bill, so don't discredit my level of excitement, but my level of excitement for Amy is off the chart. She has accepted a new position to be the assistant superintendent in the Merrimack School District. So she'll be leaving us to go on to bigger and better things, which we all knew would happen quicker than I wanted. In fact, I'm trying to tell her that I'm not mad at her, which I kind of am. So, Amy, if you want to come up, if you don't mind, I just appreciate everything. So.
Thank you, Mike. That was awfully kind of you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight and to thank you all in person for the last 6 years and the leadership and trust that you've put in me to be both at Herald early on as Bill's partner, as the assistant principal of both buildings, and then to just be at Maple Street. Hopkinton is a very special place indeed, and I leave here with a grateful heart and thankful for all of the opportunities that I've had here. When you say I'm moving on to bigger and better things, I'm not sure about that. I keep telling people I'm equal parts terrified and thrilled. You know, when you have an opportunity to grow and learn and to try new things, that is just a great opportunity. And I can't thank Mike enough. From the very first time I met him, he supervised my superintendent credential and has just been so encouraging to me as a person and as a professional and as a leader. And I'm just thankful for all of your support and trust these last 6 years. Thank you.
Wait, we're gonna
Can't
say
leave
this
yet.
yet.
You're not. Nice try.
You want to go first?
Well, I've already, I think, given Amy the riot act a little bit, but thank you again for everything.
Thank you, Jim.
Well, we spoke privately, and I'll say it publicly that you're going to be missed. And I told you you have a gift, and your gift is that you do an amazing job with students, with faculty, and nothing goes unnoticed. This is a hard one, but I think it's great that you've been able to find something that you're going to be able to continue the success, and you're going to a district who's going to have a fantastic assistant superintendent. And I would say my phone blew up when they got your skim email, asking where's Amy going, and everyone's really happy for you, but you're definitely going to be missed. So thank you, and don't be a stranger, but thank you for everything you've done, especially with the facilities project. Same with Bill, you were on top of everything, every meeting, every Monday morning, and thank you.
Thank you.
So, part of being on the school board and having your wife teach in the district is you keep definitive lines about things. So when I drove home the day that you told the staff that you were leaving, Susan was throwing the ball with the dog, and she turned to look at me and said, "A little heads up would have been nice." It is so clear that your staff reveres you, and what you've done for that building in the last 6 years is. I don't think, unless you've known the history of Maple Street School, you can appreciate all that you've done. But it's just been phenomenal. So thank you so much.
It's been an honor. They are a terrific staff, and I'll miss them all very much.
And similarly, I mean, I knew you before you were at our district, and I hope to continue knowing you after you're at our district. I might have to wake up early in the morning to see you, though.
5 a.m.
But yeah,
Corner by the door.
exactly. You can do it. But no, thank you. You again, the impact that you've had on my children, on so many children, is something they'll remember. I know that as elementary school teachers, you think, the kids grow up, and they go on, but I can still remember, the administrators and teachers I connected with, and I know that my kids will as well. So thank you so much for all you've done for the district.
Thank you.
I almost didn't want to approve the
We're not there yet. That's why I made it. So
I know, That was a hard
I don't
read.
think,
You're just trying to get out of here. So, again, what you've done, as you can see, both of you, it's a you thing. You can sit down. It kind of transitions into the next discussion with the board. And Dulcie said she's going to shoot you a note personally because she's Zooming. We haven't looked for a principal in a long time, right? And I know you did a stopgap there where you were doing both buildings, and Amy, you were then living in both worlds. So we're coming to that point where we've had the positions posted since before break. We've had quite a bit of applicants already, really high quality people, which we anticipated. People line up for jobs like theirs, especially in Hopkinton. So in regards to the search, I'm looking for some direction from the board. You haven't done it in a while. My thought, and this is just the job market we're in, if you go to, it's called edjobsnh.com, and you check out the administrative page, there are admin jobs, pages of them. So we're competing with everyone at this time. So my recommendation, but I will do whatever the will of the board is to keep it clear and concise, and we'll form building level committees. Building level committees will send it to the SAU. SAU in partnership with the board, kind of like we've done previously in our other, all of our hiring practices. That's how it is now. Yeah. I would like, if I have an anticipated timeline the goal would be the 24th, presenting candidates. If the building committees are able to work quickly. If not, it would maybe probably be a special meeting for that first week of June, something along those lines. Not waiting till the 14th is what I'm saying. So those are some of the timelines that I would envision, either getting one in before Memorial Day or that week after we get back. So open for discussion. Bless you.
Thank you.
Any thoughts?
my thought is you hit it right on the head. Normally a wider, well, I don't even know if it's normal, but I think that to have people in the buildings involved, go through that screening process, and then work it the way you're talking about, is going to be critical, because we don't have the time to do otherwise.
And to put it in perspective, Bill had said repeatedly, I want it, like he had been mulling it over forever, right? And I had said to him, your timeline, you've earned it, 22 years. Amy, I'm still mad at her. So there's a big difference. But that superintendent that called apologized, because typically these search committees for principals would happen around February, March. So we're getting into May now. So we're not behind, but we also don't want to slow the process down. So with the will of the board, my goal would be, Michelle and I have been reviewing as they come in. We'll get a screening committee together. We'll get district level admin in charge for the first round. Then they'll go to the SAU. You guys know the process now. It's pretty standard operation here, where we do the screening, building level interviews. They send candidates to the SAU. SAU then interviews with Michelle, Mandy, board member, and we go from there.
Good luck. Yeah, sounds good. I think you're gonna do great.
We have a lot of good people that have already applied, so I'm excited.
Great.
I'm excited. So
All right, sounds like you got the.
Sounds like we got a plan.
Yep. Great,
you guys don't need to hang around a board meeting if you would like to leave.
but thank you.
We're still mad at you though.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Okay, so moving on, we have the strategic plan update.
We are finally here.
Very excited for this.
This is something that the board set as a goal in our retreat to June 17th of last year. So it's pretty crazy to think that we're almost a year to where we are. There are a couple members out there, Amanda and Catherine, I think I see with the lights, who were part of the strategic planning committee that are in here. As Rick is going to project what we've done, how we did it. It's an exciting time, and I know I casually make the joke that if I drop dead tomorrow, there still needs to be an idea of what goes on, but I mean that sincerely. The show should never be about Mike. It should be about the community and the schools in a plan. And this plan, as you review it, you're going to see is achievable, sustainable, all those good things, and it was all part of the community. Rick is going to present. You guys can ask questions, and then probably the recommendation would be the next board meeting, vote it into final in case something comes up. And then from there, as you'll see, one of the goals is going to be an evaluation here at the end of the year. So without further ado, Rick Barnes.
Thank you. Thanks, Superintendent Clemens. You mentioned I was the consultant hired to facilitate the plan. I appreciate the opportunity I'm here tonight on behalf of the Strategic Planning Committee to present the 5-year strategic plan. So far, the final draft of what we've worked on. It's a product of 7 months of hard work. I think the district is to be applauded for the aggressive timeline that they took. It's not easy to complete these plans. Usually they're a good year and a half or around that time frame. But with the group that was assembled, they were very efficient and they were just a real pleasure to work with. Over that 7 months, we reviewed a lot of data and we talked a lot, deliberated on quite a number of topics and wrote and rewrote and revised goals again and again. So when we move forward through the presentation, I'm going to speak a little bit fast because I'm cognizant of my time on the agenda. So if you want to wait to the end and ask any questions, I definitely want to give you that opportunity. So our process overview, we began with our Strategic Plan Committee Charter, which was approved by this body. That led to the formation of our steering committee, and our role is to make the recommendations which we are doing here tonight to the Hopkinton School Board on your 5-year strategic plan that builds upon the many, many strengths as we've already seen here tonight in the form of your administrative staff, but there are many strengths in this district, as you all well know. But it also identifies future areas for growth. The process included an informal strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis conducted by the individual committee. They then reached out to stakeholders kind of within their sphere of influence. We then used that to design surveys and then did a comprehensive review of the data. And the group also created, through extensive discussion, the 5 buckets or elements that are part of the plan. They're part of the packet. And those elements are student wellness. These are in no particular order except for student wellness. So that was really what I would say is a unique piece of this plan, and I would say of your community. It is certainly, you could call it a buzz phrase or whatnot, but we spent a lot of time talking about how student wellness should really be integrated into everything, and we wanted to lead with students. So that's why that is absolutely first. The rest are in no particular order. They're all equally important. So the next on there was culture and climate, curriculum, instruction and assessment, facilities and grounds, and safety and security. And the safety and security piece was largely around the physical safety and security of the building and students. We also spent quite a bit of time talking about communication and finance. I'm sure as you're aware, communication is an issue for any school district in which I've been a part of or worked with. It's something that we always have to strive to work on. And rather than create a separate bucket for it, we've infused it into every element of the plan. There's something specifically referencing communication, and then something referencing finance, because finance is interwoven. You can't really separate them. After the members of the committee did their own kind of informal, very informal analysis of the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the various elements, we reached out to their own stakeholders. We then designed our survey and then did a very broad outreach of everyone in the community.
Rick, I don't mean to interrupt you, but the slides aren't moving. So there we go. Okay. Perfect.
Thank you. Sorry about that. So this outreach was pretty expansive, I would say, for a school strategic plan in a small town. So you got 161 students in grades 7 through 12. I don't think that's quite half. That's still a fair number of students, and I believe they had to opt in to take that. Probably around 70% of your total staff district-wide participated, and 452 members of the community. And this data and responses was very detailed, I can assure you. In a lot of cases, there was a lot of really good feedback in there. It took a lot of time to tease out the various themes. And then we had emails as well. Not as many emails, as a lot more participation in the survey. As well as people had the opportunity to participate in the in-person meetings and the hybrid meetings via Zoom. So people had opportunity to voice questions, concerns, issues they wanted to raise as we went through the process. In terms of creating, then we went about, I took that data and all of that input, like I said, over the last 7 months, and went about creating goals under these 5 buckets or elements of the plan. And I'm just going to go through them just kind of quickly and just touch on a couple little highlights. In knowing that there's obviously a lot more depth within the plan itself, it'll take you some time to digest. But in terms of student wellness, like I said, we mentioned that first. I think it's good for the school board to be aware that students and staff feel safe physically in your school. So it's not something you can take for granted these days. With all that's going on in the world, that was an overwhelming response that students across the board and staff felt safe. And that was more of the physical safety kind of day-to-day of school. And an area for growth, I would say, where students, there's a question on there about whether school is emotionally safe, equitable, and inclusive for all. And about 45% of students said they did, which is a good number, but I would believe in a school like Hopkinton, you want that to be higher, so that would be an area for growth. And within that, there was a mentioning of looking at various frameworks for social and emotional learning to see where that may or may not fit in within what you currently have as part of your curriculum. The next element is culture and climate. It was really nice to see, and I shouldn't have been surprised, but I'd say it's unusual to see the levels of respect between students and teachers, and then also students to administrators, and in every which way, administrators to teachers and across the board. So within the surveys, there was a really high correlation of individual respect for one another as individuals, and I think that's indicative of the strong community that you have in the town of Hopkinton. Also, the community, while they had a range of opinions about what goes on in school, overall, there was a strong sentiment that the district does improve over time, which is outstanding. In terms of culture and climate, one area for growth would just be recognizing all the good things that happen in the school district. I imagine it's going to be overwhelming to have so many good things going on. I can speak from my own experience when you work in a high-performing district. There's a lot of good things at once. So finding ways to celebrate that and get the word out, I would say, is a big area of growth, and just something to do with that communication piece that's ongoing. And then finding ways that increasing that recognition for students and staff, I think, is an important piece. Not to say that it's not happening, but it would be an area of growth. In terms of curriculum, instruction, and assessment, small class sizes were cited as a strength, and the community, staff, and students all reported that they felt the high quality of education is being received, which was, and again, another achievement for this board and the school district. The one piece that was glaring, and I know you've already taken steps to address that, was the need for a centralized process at the SAE level to direct all the curriculum that goes on. So that was, it came from everywhere. It didn't matter what people's opinions were on the curriculum. People really wanted to know more about the curriculum, wanted to know how they were doing, how they could be doing better. People felt that things were going really well, but everyone seemed to have questions around the curriculum. So that really spoke to the need for centralizing that process. I know you're already off to a good start on that one, but that's just going to be an ongoing thing. You'll never finish with that. But going on that, working on that, continuing what you've already started, I think is outstanding. And that was probably one of the larger parts of the plan. It's a school, so there's a lot of things with curriculum, instruction, and assessment. The other piece, facilities and grounds, are high marks for having clean buildings, which is always nice. Not everyone can give out a survey and have it come back when people feel the buildings are clean, want to be safe. There's been a number of recent renovations, which was people recognized. The one, maybe the loudest voice in all this, in terms of an area for growth, was around sustainability. So your students, and I would venture to say of those 34 emails, maybe 28 of them were students with very well thought out opinions, very articulate about what they wanted to see in terms of sustainability for your school district. And they wanted it all. So it's a big piece, but it wasn't just students, there were also a number of community members as well. So that's obviously something that's very important here. You get the sense that people have been working on it and they want to bring this forward. So that was loud and clear, and that will become a continued part of the discussion. And there was some mention of that from the curriculum too. People want to learn about it, they want it taught, and all those things. So that was a big piece that I think you should be aware of. And then another area for growth would be taking the opportunity to review for efficiencies in managing these physical assets that you have. Is the current system the best way to go? Is there another way through reorganizing assets to perhaps to do things a little bit differently. I think that's, your buildings, while they are clean, you are well aware that they are aging. So getting ahead of that curve, I think, is the right way to go. Lastly, but certainly not least, safety and security. As I mentioned, as part of the student wellness, staff and students report feeling safe. It's interesting to note, though, that only 62% of the community feels that the district prioritizes safety. So to me, there's a communication gap where you have people in the building feeling pretty safe, and you have people in the community not really sure. Now, I wouldn't say not really sure, that's a majority. But again, the district that you're working in terms of what your goals and expectations that I know that you have for yourselves, I would imagine you want that to be in line with what your staff and students do. And again, all these categories reference financial plans, CFP plans, things of those nature. I don't want to dive too far into those, but there is finance, there's a communication piece of all this because we don't want to do it. The next slide is just a simple for people to see at home, just to see the level of detail of the plan. It wasn't simply just a goal and then moving on. Every goal has an objective, at least one objective. It may have more than one objective depending on what we're talking about. This was a goal that was a little easier to digest about Hopkinton School District will deliver the highest quality education. Easy to digest because that's easy to say, but doing it is a challenge. And so the objective of this one was talking about engaging in relevant personalized learning experience and then maintaining the standards for excellence as they currently exist. So I thought it was important to put that in there as well. There are already high standards. There's high achievements already here. And I think people need to see this plan as a vehicle for growth, not of fixing a bunch of things that are wrong. It's how do you keep excellence and then build upon it. And then you can see the table for the action steps. So each objective will have related action steps. Some of them have many, many action steps. This one has about 4. So it just ranges through between small class sizes, benchmark criteria, talking about students who, families, working with families of students who are identified with IEP or 504, and then talking about, there was a fair number of comments from the community about Hopkinton does great things academically, but teaching students, there's a desire to see students taught what they would call life skills. What those skills are anybody's guess. But a lot of it, if you had to really narrow it down, people talk a lot about financial literacy skills, and I would say something like the soft skills, kind of emotional intelligence, those types of things. So I think it was worth noting in there because there were a number of responses from the community wanting to see that. Let's see. District trends, some of these are well known to you. We have stable and rising enrollments and are projected to rise. We spent a lot of time talking about adequate space for academic athletics and the relationship we have with the town, and that unique relationship with them owning the field, which I did not know, I was made aware of, and rewrite some things. So, and that is a unique relationship. That's a balancing act for you as a school board. Reduce state and federal aid. We know that the dollars are not coming in. They're reduced every year. You almost have to anticipate that they're just going to go away from your lens, unfortunately. Maybe they won't, but that's kind of how you have to plan. And a lot of those are escalating costs for benefits and retirement insurance, and those costs will only go up. In the middle of this list is student mental health needs. This is a need across the state. Your district is no different. Students across the state are in crisis. There's not enough people to help them. There are not enough mental health workers out there. That will fall to the schools because that's where they spend most of their time. So how you go about addressing that, there's recommendations in the plan, but there's flexibility as well as part of this plan. It's very flexible and allows you to adapt to meet your needs, but it's worth noting. There's also increasing emphasis on equity and inclusion, as I've already mentioned, to prepare students to be culturally competent citizens. And I took that in part mostly from a comment from one of the community members. I thought that was well phrased. And we did our best to include that in the plan as well. The known and unknown impacts of COVID, you know that. We deal with it every day. Associated costs for facilities and grounds that are aging, we covered that. And your teaching staff is concerned about legislation and its impact on classroom instruction. So that's something that came through on a number of comments. And I put sustainability on there. That is something that people are loud and clear they want to see happen, and they want to see it happen now. And I think they'd be very pleased to see progress being made along those lines. We did our best to make the strategic plan user-friendly. At the back of the plan, it's kind of a plan at a glance. We try to simplify it in about a page and a half. So if I'm at a meeting, I can pick it up, I can look at it, I can see the school has goals without going into too much depth. And we did our plan implementation, it's a rolling cycle. So hopefully you can get to this and begin planning for, ideally, we recommended would be planning for goals in June of 2022. In the end of this June, drafting goals for the following year. And by the end of July, finalizing those goals. In August, sharing those goals with staff at your first meeting. And in September, having staff begin drafting their own goals, which in part should be aligned to the strategic plan, however it comes out in its final form after you adopt it. And then when May and June rolls around again, as you're well aware, the process starts over. So it's just a continuous cycle. The last slide on here, that's one of the last paragraphs in the plan at the end, is basically gives you the authority as the school board to decide how and when to make any updates or amendments to the 5-year plan. So if this is done right, you don't need to hire someone like me every 5 years, although I would be more than happy to come back every 5 years. But the reality is we have a lot of bright people in the community, and I know that because I had an opportunity to work alongside them, and they know what's needed. So this plan reflects that. You can amend it. It's yours. It's your plan. And you can, as a school board, in collaboration with the superintendent, can make those changes, and it's flexible so that you can literally pull things out and plug other things in as things arise and needs arise, and we know that happens in education. So that was me being as quick as I possibly can.
Nailed it.
Great, that's great. Questions?
Real quick, I just want to compliment Rick. I said to him yesterday, he's worth every cent. The minutes and the time and genuine investment, I think it was genuine. Every community member that reached out, any committee member that reached out, he picked up the phone, he called, whatever it was needed. So it was really good work, and I think that's representative of the plan, and I'm excited about it. So I want to thank you. I appreciate it. I think you're outstanding at what you do. So, sorry. Go ahead, Rob.
I had a brief opportunity to read the plan this morning and the overview now, and there's a lot of good and very clear and specific. I am amazed that this all came and got pulled together in such a short amount of time and came out as well as it did, having been a part of things that take years and are, so it's phenomenal that you were able to lead that with Mike and the committee to make that all happen. So looking forward to going through it again and, moving it forward as we look ahead here in the next couple of weeks. It's great, really well done.
I have 2 questions. My first question is, when this is adopted, how many goals have you seen a district commit to when they get the plan approved? Is it 3 or 4? I mean, what do you usually see once it's approved? Like, because there's quite a bit of work that needs to get done, of course. What's the average that usually happens for setting goals?
Well, I wouldn't say all goals are equal. I think
Okay.
you really have to look at this plan. That's why I left all the other pieces blank in terms of when to do them, because there's no way that I could possibly make that decision on your behalf. So I think that would be something as a school board you might do at a retreat or a workshop or something of that nature to start to lay. And that's going to take a little bit of time because that's actually really hard.
Yeah.
Writing the plan's almost easy compared to trying to figure out when you're going to be doing it and when, and holding yourself accountable. So I would say that would be done as a school board, laying that out. Now, in terms of what do schools typically do, they would probably highlight 3 to 5 per year. There's certainly more than 3 to 5 goals there, but you can't do everything all at once. So some of them are going to be ongoing, some of them are really easy to be doing ongoing. Hire and retain the best staff. Yeah, you always want to do that. But some of them will be harder. The initiatives around sustainability, if you're looking at social and emotional learning, that's going to take a lot of time. People are going to have a lot to say about that. So it depends on what you pick. Like 3 to 5 is kind of a time frame, but it really depends on what the board sets as its priorities.
Okay, that's great. And then my other question is, can you go back to the slide of the dates real quick? I just had one quick question on that. Slide.
Yep. There.
No, the one with the goal 2, for example. Yeah, number 6.
Sorry. Yes.
So when we are going through this and we're selecting the year we're doing something, are we doing a forecast of saying we're going to do this in 2025, 2026, or are we just checking off when we do it in that specific time?
So it can go both ways.
Okay.
So once the plan is finalized, as he said, you can't do it all.
Yep.
But when we meet at our retreat or whatever, that's when this will be pulled out. all right, what are we looking at now? And,
Okay.
you know, Rob and Andrea and I went over the goals that you guys have checked off this year.
Yep.
But now we'll have the plan that will tie your goals to it. So,
Okay.
I mean, if we want to just pick one, I mean, some of these are harder. It's not a 3-year forecast, but
Yeah.
if you get into some of the other ones that you know, maybe in 2 years, that's the goal, then you can exit out and air market for that year. And then at the end of the year, you say, all right, we can either move that up or bump that back.
Okay, because that way we need to budget for something.
Yep.
We know it's on there, we agree as a board, 2026, we're doing it.
Yep.
Okay, that's what I want. I
Yep.
just didn't know if it was a check off and do it. Yeah.
Feel good about it.
Yeah, feel good. Okay, perfect.
I think Dulcie has a question.
Yeah, my other question about the dates was that I think I saw in the presentation that it was restarting again, basically in June of 2023. If it's a 5-year plan, is it that we're updating it on a 2-year basis, or did
It's-
I read that wrong?
It's essentially, it's a rolling cycle. Just every May and June, we'll pull out the strategic plan and essentially see where we've done and evaluated it. It's a 5-year plan.
Great.
Yeah, so then
Yes.
typically,
Okay.
honestly,
So it was
typically.
just for the goals?
Yeah, typically it's like negotiations, right around year 4-ish, you'll start to think about
Yes.
moving it, yeah, and redesigning, okay.
Okay. All right, yeah, I thought that we were gonna redo that entire process again in 2023, and I was like, of
Nope,
course.
nope.
So, yeah, great, terrific, cool, thanks.
But it actually gets a lot easier. Once you have this in place, everything becomes so easy, well, as easy as it can be. You get a lot of clarity. It's great for staff, it's great for administrators, it's very clear what the expectations are, and it is one of those things that is top down, but that's not a bad thing. It can keep it one direction, so.
Rick, how does this, so NEASC is going to be rolling around pretty soon. I think we're going to be up for our 10 years. So how does this parallel that, you know, how do those two things integrate?
So when I created this plan, I was not looking at the NEASC reflections or whatnot, but a lot of the things, these elements or buckets are a part of NEASC. They're very simple. You're gonna have climate and culture. There's gonna be a talk about the physical plan and facilities. Most of what you have in here, if not all of it, is going to be, NEASC is gonna be looking at. And I would say you're ahead of the curve with the student wellness piece, because the idea that you're gonna find a way to integrate that in every aspect, that's something that a lot of schools are struggling with. People can bring in speakers, we can do events or whatnot, but to actually do that on a continual basis and set that as your top priority, I think is the right way to go. And I think it should stand out to them.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna thank Jim and Norm too for, Norm left, but thank you for being on the committee. Did you wanna add anything too?
Less of an ad, just more of a question for us, like what our process is to sort of get from what I think is a great amount of work that Rick and the committee has done, to sort of go through it and then give some public input. And we got a lot of input into, like, I guess, the building blocks of the plan, but we haven't got public input on the plan.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, what are we thinking about our process to finalize it and sort of move forward?
That's a great question.
So typically, you want me to?
Yeah.
Okay. So we had talked about, especially at the committee level, that once it was finalized, it would come for board discussion, question, review. And then really, we post it online, send out some type of notification, and then anyone could send it into the board for discussion, questions, things of that nature. Now, I reiterate, the committee did the work, all right? They did the work. Amanda and Catherine and Anna and Scott and thank you, Jonathan, they did the work. They ran around, they communicated, they solicited feedback, they did the work with Rick, like that's the work. So when you talk about feedback, it'd be tweaks at this point, right? It wouldn't be substantial changes, it would be things of that nature. So that's another piece, so.
So we would post it unapproved for the community to see.
Draft form.
Draft form, and then they would have some time between now and the next board meeting to read it. And if they have any questions or comments.
We have an email address set up.
Yep.
They can send it in.
In regard to feedback, if I'm incorrect on this, please let me know, because I'm sometimes wrong. It's the amount of feedback from our survey was probably the most overwhelming you've seen in a lot of projects you've done on strategic plan, you would say?
In terms of surveys that I've ever put out, I think that was a substantial amount of feedback. Strategic planning is not something that people get super excited about. So people are interested in building bonds, initiatives, but this drives everything. And this is the details interested in that. There was a high degree, I found a high degree of interest, and I was actually quite taken aback in a good way by the student response.
Yeah.
They were ready to go and mobilize. They had a message and they were on point. So I think that's indicative of the level of interest that I saw. So
Thank you.
Yeah, and Jim, kind of to your point, I know Rob and I and Dulcie are only really seeing this whole thing very recently, and so I know I personally need more. I've done a read through, but this is in depth. So I know that I'll probably have more
there's a lot
questions.
to
Yeah,
there's a lot to
at the next at the next meeting. So I think putting it out as a draft and then having
We'll
folks
post the email address to
weigh in.
it, same thing, and then we'll make sure that feedback comes into Rick and we can move it along as needed, so. All right, does that sound fair?
That
good?
sounds perfect, yeah. Do we set a
That sounds
date
great.
for feedbacks, or in case it?
Yeah, I'll put a date on when we send it out, or on the page, the cover page essentially, because if the meeting's on the 24th, we'll want it by that Friday, feedback by the
Yeah, that
20th
way we
for us
can
to
dissect
process the
it.
work, yeah.
maybe you should have a copy that has the draft watermark on it, so people
That'd be
don't think
great.
it's a done deal type of thing. Yeah, it's just a draft.
Amanda, Catherine, does that sound good? Yeah?
Can I say something?
Sure. Yeah?
Just sitting here for 50,000 foot view, I was gonna email. So I encourage the public to go to actually read the document and not just take what you heard tonight. Because what I heard sitting here was just this tremendous focus on sustainability. It came over and over and over again. And for me, as a member of the process, that was a piece of it. But that wasn't by any means the lion's share. And that's, to me, sitting here, how it just came through. So I encourage the public to make sure they really read the document and that there's a lot more to it than the 5 minutes you had to present it.
Sure, absolutely. It is a lot there. Like I said, the curriculum piece was the biggest piece that was covered.
Yeah, focus, if you're gonna take something from the presentation tonight, it would really be about the buckets that we talked about, right? So that was the hours of time spent on the wellness of the student and the culture and the climate, and the curriculum instruction. And so making sure that we have it out there enough that people take the 28-page document and take time to read it, for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, it's very good. It's really good. Thank you guys for doing this work. I mean,
Before
it's,
I alluded to, but I want to thank the committee, those members who were here and weren't able to make it for their work. Everyone was very efficient, very direct in their comments and feedback and timely, and the discussions were substantive.
Oh, it's a great group. We should get them together for something else and get that done.
I felt like it was reflective of varying viewpoints within the community, so it wasn't, we had very in-depth discussions on it.
well, I know, as a board and as a community, we've really been looking for a plan for a long time and trying to figure out a way for us to drive a lot of our decisions. And so I'm excited that we are very close, I think, to having one that really will work for our community. So, thank you. Any other questions, feedback? Nope.
Dulcie, anything else?
Thank you, Rick.
Nope, I would corroborate Andrea's 2 points.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. You put the fun in strategic plan.
Not quite sure what it is. And you are welcome to hang out with us, but you certainly do not have to.
Thank you.
All right. Just pull up the agenda again.
You should stay, man.
The wing seat's the best. Still makes it-
Well, you just spread all out.
So Rick, I'll connect with you the next
It's just like,
Just have a good view.
Great.
this is her mic.
All right. We're back. I'm gonna turn Dulcie so she can see me. Okay, so I didn't realize that this was actually going to be related to as much the strategic plan, but I asked that we're moving on to a sustainability discussion. So I asked that this was added to the agenda tonight because I felt that it was really important for us as a board to just have this conversation. For background, 2 years ago, 2-ish years ago, we had the Students for 100 come and presented us with a sustainability resolution that didn't quite seem to fit for our board as far as maybe the specificity that we were looking for, and the language, it wasn't quite a fit for our district. The policy committee then took a look at it to see if perhaps it would fit as a policy, but as a committee at this point, we have determined that a policy also does not make sense. What is clear is that sustainability is something that we're interested in, but I feel, and y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, but as a board, it would be helpful for us to figure out what exactly we would like to do kind of with the concept of sustainability and our district. I know that it is in the strategic plan more specifically, which I was glad to see. But I just wanted to have kind of an open discussion this evening about sustainability in general, which is a huge topic. So I put in a brief document, and in the board notes as far as things that folks can look at, but I just wanted to sort of open it up. Do you want to jump right in?
Well, yeah, because I guess I was thinking about the reaction in the last meeting to like sort of the policy concept. And so I guess in my mind, what I didn't like about that, it was solely focused on just renewable energy, which I think is supportive of renewable energy, but when you think about sustainability, like that's a component of like a larger piece. And so I felt uncomfortable supporting like a goal, which is pretty much a goal rather than a policy. It was more a goal, something to strive for, which I'm supportive of. It's just how does it fit within a larger plan. So when I think about sustainability for a school district, think of everything from like where we source our materials from, what we're putting on our grounds for fertilizer. There's sort of a larger component to sustainability other than just a focus on renewable energy. And so I guess if you were designing sort of what a sustainability model would be, I just hope it would be encompassing of more than just a very limited piece around energy, and sort of takes a more holistic approach about our operations and how we, our student wellness and how we think about that as a model, and not just focus on, I won't say a shiny object like renewable energy because that doesn't feel right, but it is a small piece of a larger pie, and we have a large campus with 1,000 students, and I just worry about just us focusing on a narrow niche rather than really thinking holistically about how we look at our operations and do it in a way that is sustainable both environmentally but also for our taxpayers. Like, what's a sustainable financial model? And the last thing I'll say is, I was thinking about this on my walk here. I think about sustainability, the financial model being really important. Like, if we have, if we're going to be investing additional dollars, we're, as a board, we have to make a choice of those dollars go towards more expensive energy, renewable energy, or go into like a teacher. And so that's a struggle for me, because as an educational institution, I would want our next dollar to go into the students. And it's a struggle because we want to achieve certain outcomes, as a district. But I do struggle with how we set these priorities and how it rolls into a financial model, because we know from, but we just know because we hear it. We do have struggling families, and so every dollar that we spend is a public dollar, in ensuring that we're putting it to the best use of our students is. Anyway, I'm rambling on now, but those are all the thoughts I had, I think, following the last meeting. So
Yeah.
I appreciate this conversation.
You can go. I can go after you.
I've got a lot of notes in different buckets, so to speak, and similar to you. When I think about sustainable, I think about the energy options, and I think we all think about that. Solar, geothermal, biomass, heat pumps. What's that? But we also have to think about our financial capacity and how is that sustainable, and is that something that the town? The other faction here is that I don't think this is just a school board decision. I think this is a community decision, and we need to broaden that and get a lot of community input before we go ahead with what this is going to look like. I don't think, well, I'll speak for myself. I know we're moving in a world away from carbon, but what exactly that looks like and in what variables, I don't know. The other pieces that you talk about, what have we done in terms of energy efficiency? Just having been here over the years, the changes in lightings and insulation and doors and windows, we've done a lot of those tweaks. But I guess where I get stuck is when we go to, just to use an example, you go to a solar company and say, what can you do for us? We're getting advice on sustainable energy from somebody who is selling us something. I would much prefer to get advice from somebody who is an energy expert who says, these are your buildings, these are the ways that you could integrate this, and these would be the associated costs, and they're not selling us the product. That's really the voice that I would like to hear versus the other way around. So that's, I think it's a big decision, and to use the analogy of, we all saw the TV satellites in yards in Vermont. We don't want to invest in those to find out in 15 years they're going to be this big. So we really have to be careful about how we go about this process. And to the Students for 100, I know all those guys. I applaud them. I get your energy, but I also think we need to do it in a methodical way that gets us to the right outcome. I would like nothing more than to look out in the parking lot, in September and see solar panels up over all of those parking spaces and say, yeah, we did a good thing. But I wouldn't know if we actually had done a good thing long term. So.
We're all looking at me now, right? No, I agree with both of you along the same lines. I think, for me, the one thing that was a concern for me is I didn't want to be tied to a date when we were going to be effective at this state with 1 or 2 or 3 read-ins, because there's a financial ramification to that, which is really important, especially when we're on the right path with our budgeting process. I have consistently met with the students for one, and I support their goal and everything, and I made it very clear that this is something that this board needs to really unpack at a slow stage, because there's a lot of planning and a lot of information that you've mentioned, that other people and other resources to get information and unpack. Also, questions for Michelle: what type of contract we're in with our suppliers right now, and how that has a ramification on the district. There's a lot more information about it I need to understand, as a board member and as a community member, to go all in and making some type of recommendation. What's important to me is that this is going to be part of our strategic planning, so we will need to form some type of I don't want to say committee or some type of group, but a way of being able to unpack this appropriately and have discussions at the board level and plan for the future with that. What I don't want is to be tied to a date per se and have a financial ramification impact on our schools when we're choosing to educate over this. I'm a strong believer in it. I just want to do it the right way and the right path for us, for the district and for the environment. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. Can I just check with Dulcie quick?
Yeah.
Dulcie, did you want to pop in?
Yes, I would love to. So, Jim, I really liked what you were saying about the broader, right? Obviously, you can look at energy because it's probably the most costly in terms of financial dollars you would do. And so I think what the students and I were trying to do is trying to just pick something to just get started. But if you're let's go broader, I think that's great, right? You want to look at fertilizer, amazing. Obviously, being able to look at reusables, the cafeteria is terrific. Rob, to your point, a lot of the changes that have already been made, I think, are excellent. I do think an important part of the financial consideration that everyone needs to think about is that oil is not going to be the cheapest thing forever, right? Or gas. And so when we do that financial modeling, there will be things that we need to consider. And part of our economic, it's fiduciary responsibility is thinking about that longer term thing. So we're not setting ourselves up in a hole with deferred energy costs 10, 20 years down the line, right? We want to be thoughtful about the way that those energy forecasts are supposed to look. I do think that there needs to be a lot of financial modeling, and I'm 100% there for that, and I'm happy to contribute there, but I think that's good. And I think the last thing about the policies, I think the way the timelines were structured were, and I probably did a poor job saying this, was not running to make a decision on our next energy source or whatever that was going to look like, but really thinking about, are we getting a neutral energy audit? Are we being able to look at, Rob, to your point, having someone who's not an installer come in and make recommendations, looking at the siting of the school, thinking about what that looks like. So think the intention was to have much longer, more in-depth conversations about sort of what the needs and requirements of the schools would be, both from an intake perspective as well as an economic perspective. But I think that there's a lot of work to do here, and I'm super excited at the prospect of actually being able to do it. Yeah.
So I think I shared these with you, Andrea, but I mean, they're not hard to find, because I found them, so they can't be hard to find. But a lot of districts around the country have done pretty much, they're called like energy management plans or energy management policies, which aren't really setting up like a goal for renewables, but it is what I think Dulcie just said. It's sort of like, how do we operate our facilities, and how do we operate our facilities sustainably? So it's, you know, looking at everything from the type of lighting you have to your energy efficiency footprint, and then, you know, putting in the policy the types of sourcing that we might want to do when Michelle is going out, so she has guidance from what the board's looking at. So it's a bit more comprehensive policy look at our facility footprint, and if we hire a facilities manager, this would be a wonderful thing for them to be part of. But again, I think that gives us a holistic look, and then when we're starting to make some decisions around purchasing or procuring certain types of systems, we've already made a decision that can help Michelle guide her into the RFP process. So it's not just a one-off, we have to hire a firm to come put solar on the roofs, but we've developed sort of an overall plan for our management of our facilities, which I think over the next 3 to 5 years could get us toward like moving in the direction of sustainability without trying to do it all in one fell swoop. In the documents, I can share them with the rest of the board. I just came across them, but you know, they're not short. They're pretty long documents, but I think they're pretty compelling, and even things for like where we set our thermostats. And I just think that could be a place to start this, because I think it provides sort of a bigger picture look and starts to get at what Dulcie said around like what is the last energy audit we've done? Is that something we want to update? What are some of the low-hanging fruit that we can start looking at building into our budget? So
Yeah, and I actually this afternoon put those into a short document. They're just links right in the board folder. Anything else? People feel heard?
What is the next step of this board to unpack this clearer, to be able to inform the board of multiple options and a plan? And you know, it took us many years to get the facilities project done, right? With people who understand how to add on addition, construction, all that, and CRM or whatever, construction manager. So what's the next step for us to be able as a board, which has no financial ramifications, to start? Step you propose.
I mean, I would say that we can look to at least the draft form of our strategic plan under facilities and grounds. Goal 4 is reviewing the latest research and best practices around sustainability efforts. And I believe, is this the one that has, it recommends putting together some sort of like a board level advisory committee. I mean, I personally, I know I haven't really jumped in, I really appreciated a lot of the energy management plans that Jim shared, and I encourage people to take a look at them. I think that is something doable. I think a committee, an advisory committee could for sure, without even I mean, if we need to hire outside help, we certainly could. I don't know as it's needed. I think that we probably have those skills within our community. And I think a year-long, I would recommend a year-long advisory committee to the board regarding sustainability with a specific goal to create an energy management plan would be what I would envision.
So I love the idea, but I'd also like to ask Mike if he can give us some type of direction of how other districts did this at the beginning. What other districts do in order to get to the point of digging deeper?
Yeah, and I've said it before, I know it sounds cheesy, but we created the Cleaner Greener Committee at Timberlane. So it was essentially a sustainability task force. You know, I complimented Amanda and Catherine earlier, but we have community members that want to be a part of this. And I think that if you set you don't have to set a goal, but it's in the strategic plan now, again, pointing to that for the 22-23 work year for us, that we create and work on a sustainability task force. Now, I think the first level is just creating the task force, and then that group gets to decide whether by the end of the year, there's a full-blown plan written, or maybe it is smaller. But I think you have board representatives, along with administration, along with teachers, along with community members, something around that, what do we have, 12, 6 to 10, 10 to 12-ish? Meet monthly, so you get, 10 good meetings in, work in between type of stuff. That all seems achievable.
I mean, the other thing, it kind of goes into hiring, I guess. Like, if we're going to hire a facilities director or start thinking about that, like hiring someone who has background, experience, knowledge in this area, because I think a committee's fine and can help create a plan.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, a lot of the stuff has to do with the operations of our facilities, which I know nothing about as a board member. Like, that's not, I mean, I could weigh in, but I do think having the staff who care and think about the long-term operations of these buildings are the ones who are going to help make those decisions and probably be at the forefront. So hiring people who have that knowledge, expertise, and are excited about it would be really, I think, help kind of kickstart some of this.
Yeah, that's part of that reorganization we have going on. So when you have a dedicated person of that, they are able to go to the monthly meetings of facility directors in the state. They are able to, as Michelle was at the business one last week, go to the conferences and see what's going on. So that's definitely would be an objective moving into that role.
And then they'd have to balance the budget aspect of it. I mean, they'd have to balance the financial aspect along with the,
Yeah. Is Ted, my only thought on the committee is I want to think about, and will be helpful hearing from like the curriculum committee, and obviously the strategic planning committee, is because having more people can really help in terms of like sub work that needs to happen, possibly if it's a monthly meeting session. But I also wonder about having it be the right size group to actually be able to like get together and get things done. If a group gets too hard, then too big, then it can also be complex to manage. I know we talked about this at the beginning of the year with the curriculum committee, so I wasn't sure if you guys had feedback on the size of that. Because I think that it is a big community piece, but yeah.
We want to make sure that this is an advisory committee and not, there's a significant difference.
A committee, yeah.
Yeah, so this isn't a curriculum, this isn't policy, this is an advisory committee that they will present, it's just framed different. I just want to be clear on that, okay?
it's like the steering
Yeah,
committee was the
steering
advisory committee. Okay, so I'm hearing that we're open to forming some sort of committee. Gotta figure out what that.
It doesn't have to happen tonight.
Yeah,
Like I
it's
said,
not-
this is
Don't
a
worry,
22-20.
it won't happen
Okay.
tonight.
But, I can sit down with Michelle, who's lived this world now for quite some time. We can talk about it. We can reach out to other districts who've done this, see what their committee size has been, and certainly we can report back. I think with 24th should be more than achievable to report back on what we think it should look like for the start of next year.
Okay, that'd be great.
Sound all right?
Does that
Sounds
sound?
good.
Great discussion.
But is there any work that could possibly happen like before the start of next year? For instance, if we found someone who was able to do an audit or something like that, could that still happen under the guise of CIP?
So my next year starts July 1st. Just, that's how I look at it.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Super. Thank you, Michael Flynn. That'd be great. Yep. Cool.
Does that help? All right. Awesome. Well, thank you guys. Here, I'm gonna
Yeah.
scooch you so Mike can see his computer again. All right. Excellent. So moving right along, we have policy. Policy is real short tonight. So I can't even find where I am. Hold on. So we have no final reads tonight. We have one first read and 2 second reads. The first read is our JLCF wellness. I apologize for getting this in really late to you guys. This is, I tried to make it as easy as possible for you to see the change in this policy.
This was required from Michelle.
Yes,
Yep.
yep, and so basically the change, if you click on the policy and scroll down, you'll see it highlighted in yellow. This is our wellness policy. Basically, it used to say we'll give you a cheese sandwich and a thing of milk. And I think it's important that we don't stigmatize kiddos if they're not able to get lunch. And the law feels the same way. And so now you get a regular hot lunch. So it adds to the, you can't tell who is getting hot lunch because they signed up or who is getting hot lunch because they need a hot lunch. So, do you see what I'm talking about, Mom? Good, yeah.
Yeah.
Click on it. If you click, you'll scroll down and
This is the wellness, okay.
Yep,
All right.
wellness.
Yep,
So
the
that
district
is,
will provide a regular hot lunch for any student who has forgotten lunch or who has the lack of funding for his or her food service account.
yep,
So they can go in the negative, they're not denied.
Correct.
we're gonna feed kids if they're hungry. So that's it, that's the first read. The second reads are, we have DKC, which was our expense reimbursements. And we had policy IKE, which is promotion and retention of students, both of which I discussed at the last meeting. I have not heard anything about either of these two policies, so I'm going to assume they're looking okay. So those two policies, those are both needed to come forward for, DKC comes forward so that we can be in line with the policies that we have on hand for grant applications and for signing off on grant money. And IKE is just updating our promotion and retention of students. This is specifically for kids, generally it's for kids who are moving from kindergarten, preschool to kindergarten or kindergarten to first grade. Any questions? Yeah?
Guys, going back to the wellness on the
Yes.
first read. So a couple, I don't remember when, so it was sometime in the last 4 years. The board passed a policy around, I'm gonna get the word wrong, but it was like movement. And so I think it was like after a certain number of minutes in a class, there was a requirement for teachers to provide movement. And so I guess it's a question, or it's, I don't remember what policy that is, but this policy on wellness has a physical activity section. So if we want to keep whatever policy that was around movement, maybe it should get incorporated into this policy. Or at least it's connected in some way, and so I just want to name that because I know we have a lot of policies, but that one was very specific to physical activity, and so this policy speaks to that as well, so it's maybe more of a heads up to maybe check that one and either incorporate it or not, however we see fit, but it felt relevant.
Yeah. Nope, I made a note and I will look into that.
Can I ask a question about the promotion? I don't know if I'm opening a can of worms, but I've heard cases of kids skipping a grade. Is this part of this? Or
So the board doesn't get involved in promotion or retention of students.
yeah, I know, but we're creating a policy, that's why.
The policy points to the procedure, which is building level through the principal and the superintendent.
Okay, and so when
So-
it comes to that stuff, that'd be,
Yep.
you
they
guys
would-
decide.
They would connect
Okay,
with the
got it,
principal and
okay.
go through all that, yeah.
All right, that makes sense, I'm sorry.
And just to be clear, we're not creating that policy. That policy was one we already have on the books.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I
We're
understand.
just updating it.
Yep.
Oops, darn it. That's it. That's it for me.
So no votes tonight.
Nope, no votes.
No longer.
I'm just making myself a note so that I remember to check for the other movement policy. So that's it. So next meeting on the 24th, I'll come back with just two to move forward. We're really slowing down because it's the end of the school year.
And you'll see over the next couple of weeks, year-end snapshots of each committee. So each board member will present out essentially the work of the year. Andrea will come with 104 policies we review, whatever the number is, and we'll go on from there. All right?
Right.
Okay, so
on
to
you.
the consent agenda, I'm going to kind of bounce around here, so forgive me. I'm going to start with the Krista McAuliffe sabbatical. If you did not read, I think it was in Bill's newsletter or so forth, that one of our professionals, Liz Cannon, qualified for the Krista McAuliffe sabbatical. She's going to be taking a year to work on early literacy. So congratulations to her. You can certainly read it at the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation website. Check out the article on what she's going to be doing. That is some stiff competition. That's all the educators around the state apply. They pay for her full year salary. Now that's the great part. The challenging part is that obviously opens up a hole for us. So because of that, we're moving a couple dominoes to start. So we're going to move Sarah Duvall over to Liz's position for the year, which is going to open a second grade year-long position. So that will begin to start as we'll interview or transition internally depending on what's going on. So those may be a couple dominoes you see coming that way. But obviously we want to support Liz in that work that she's going to be doing. That's great because a lot of it will come back to us, the data and the processes. So congratulations to Liz, and we're going to be moving Sarah up for that position for the year. So with that, I'm going to go backwards now. I'm going to go to resignations, and then we'll get to hiring. So in your packet, you will see resignations from, there's quite a few names, so bear with me as I read through them. Ryan Nicholson at Maple Street, Tucker Sargent at Maple Street, Gordon McDonald at Maple Street, Amy Doyle at Maple Street, William Carosa at Harold Martin, and Noah Thompson for facilities. So they've submitted their letter of resignation. Some of them are moving on to different careers. Some of them are moving on to different districts. Some of them, as you know, are retiring. So we wish them all well. And there's a lot of years of service in that line. So we thank them for their service, which then flips us back to the hiring. So with that, if you've been paying attention, the high school had 5 positions that were opening because of the early retirement, which is a significant savings for the district because of allowing people that are on the high end to leave, and then with our hiring practices now that we're doing, bringing them in at a different path. So you will see, I always mess up her name, I'm going to say Raven Eggers, right? Kimberly Meyer, Julie Manny, Sarah Monet, and then Elizabeth Kovar. So that is for math, social studies, and 3 special education teachers at the middle high school. So that brings them back up to full staff, which is huge for the competition we have going on right now with competing districts in regards to hiring. With that, we also have, I told you at the last meeting, we were still negotiating, well, kind of just providing information back and forth with one final early retirement, which will take us to, I think, 7. 6? 5? 6. So Mr. Dixon, who's at the middle high school for science, we have worked with him in which he will accept the early retirement, but to our benefit, he's actually going to stay on staff and move to Maple Street as an instructional assistant. So as I talked to Amy about how she had 3, but it's going down to 2, so Mark's it's one of the benefits with New Hampshire retirement system, you can retire, and then there's a lot of qualifications on what you can do and what you can't do. That's that part we are working out with the state and the retirement system to make sure that he could still maintain his retirement, but also continue to work for us. So that position will now be, so now high school was full until today, we'll be posting a science position. So there's a couple, as you can see, a lot of dominoes that are shifting there for us. We have another special ed at Amy's building, which we mentioned, which we have 2 finalists that we're waiting to hear back on. So again, we are in, I mean, I know I've shared it before, but for putting it in perspective, when I was at my superintendent's meeting, a neighboring district had 32 openings. And that's a small, it's a smaller district. So our people are staying, and that's a compliment to you guys and the contracts you've negotiated. People are taking the early retirement, which is another benefit for us in the long run, the return on investment. So we're looking pretty good moving forward here. So that's what's going on with personnel. Any questions on personnel?
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
No, I'm happy to see the new math teacher, Ms. Govar. You know, you didn't disclose she's a Steelers fan, but that's okay. But no, what's great about that to me is that they were actually attended Hopkinton, and for them to be full circle to come back and teach here, I think it's just great. You know, Hopkinton resident, full circle as a student here, and now as a teacher. It's just great to see that. That's all.
And then I had a quick question. I don't know if you can answer this or if Rob might get into this. So I know we've done a lot of, we've had resignations, we've had hiring. I know we talk about, savings and our shifting hiring plans. Is this something where it's sort of a one-to-one, that it's a wash? Are we realizing any ability to shift some costs in there to support other positions?
Yeah, so that's been the goal that I said to the town budget committee when I met with them in November. And it was really evaluating our hiring practices, right? So if someone's leaving at a master's level with 15 years of experience, the goal is to hire a quality candidate, but it also doesn't necessarily have to be a wash, is what you've used. So if they're getting paid, we'll use simple numbers. If they're getting paid 50, you can find someone who's getting paid 35 and have a quality candidate, and you save $15,000. So what you're seeing here, specifically in these, just off the top of my head, you're seeing about a $45,000 savings because of the people that are retiring, what their salary was to what we're hiring. So that's just this. But we've had several openings and things that are still returning. Amy and Bill are going to be, a difference in salary. So the goal is to continue to bring our salary line down, but also be able to use that to fund different opportunities. One of the things that the budget committee in the town said, the district was always, we need this, but never looked within. So that was one of the targets they set for me, is kind of do more with the same, right? Don't keep coming and asking, evaluate what you do, see if you can do more with the same or less. Really is the goal, would be less. So that's what we're doing with our hiring practice. Michelle is, I know I compliment her all year long, but she'll be like, Mike, this is what I'm budgeting for, so we want to make sure we're hitting those numbers. So that number continues to come down, and we're able to do more things. We don't want to, it's easy to always hire someone who's been around for 20 years.
Yeah.
But it was one of the things that I talked about with you guys is I want to make it a goal to try and see talent out there that we're interviewing, right? Like I said, the easy answer is, if Rob walked in, it would be so easy to hire him, but he's also the most expensive, right? So the goal was for us to find talent that we can have a lower number, more sustainable over the next 5-10 years, whatever it might be. So that was a long-winded answer.
No, that's perfect.
So the second grade position is posted, or is it internal?
It's not yet. So tonight's approval will make that one go live.
Okay.
So we had to move Sarah's with approval first, and that position gets posted.
And my other question, so that'd be an ongoing second grader, like it wouldn't be for 1 year, correct?
No, it'd be a 1 year.
Okay,
Because
it's
Liz
sabbatical,
comes back,
okay, all right.
Sarah goes back, yeah.
Okay, just one.
Yep.
Okay. All right.
We have some internal things that we think can happen to help prevent that, because it's always challenging to find a 1 year person.
Yes,
And it's always challenging if you find them and they're great, but then the reality is we got to move them on. So we're trying to finally move some internal pieces that would protect internal people, at the same time maybe not fill a position that we might not need for a year. So again, it's trying to do more with less. That makes sense?
It does. If enrollment was low, would you consider not even hiring that?
Correct.
Okay.
Yep. So
But we'd want to go back to the methodology of having.
it's not enrollment driven. It's going to be, I can't talk about it. I just can't talk about it right now.
Yeah, that's fine. No, I know what you're saying.
Okay.
Okay, got it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think just related to what Mike's talking about too, and I was really excited to see it in the strategic plan, was the hiring practice of building more relationships with our educational institutions that are putting out teachers. We want to be the first person to the draft, basically. So I think that being in there is going to help us a lot moving down the road if we can energize that piece. So.
Okay. All right. So moving forward to superintendent's report, kind of short and sweet. Norm always steals my thunder. I think we need to move board comments to the end, but that's my opinion. Teacher Appreciation Week is here. Listen, there's been the world's gone through a lot here, and it's been challenging for everyone. Our profession got flipped upside down. This year has been great to get back to a sense of normalcy, and our staff has done a great job of getting back to it. Not just here, but I know in the district I live, in the inner city districts, Manchester, Nashua, those districts that live through some of the most difficult times, these people continued to show up, continued to do whatever was necessary. So it's not just an appreciation for Hopkinton, it's an appreciation for all teachers out there for what they've done and to continue to help students. So the PTA, I believe, is involved, and they're going to be supporting some stuff here at the end of the week, and we'll make sure we take care of teachers as we can. But thank you to them. So next is the next parent advisory forum, which we talked about every other month, is May. Amy and Bill are going to be doing a data one. That was one of the ones we got back from that parent survey, if you remember, we sent out in November. So they're going to be talking about how parents can read their students' data, what they can look at, and things of that nature. And then you're going to be getting, I believe, some type of data here with coming out of the Curriculum Assessment Committee. So that'll be making its way here. And you'll see that more frequent now with the Director of Curriculum. You'll get to see more data, more assessment, more discussion. That person will actually have an agenda item every week, every board meeting that they're going to be discussing. The HEA contract is here. I met with Scott today. We finalized we just reformatted, finalized all that fun stuff. So now I just need all of your signatures on here. Then we'll pass it on to Scott. Then we'll add the new pay schedule. We'll add Schedule B. We'll PDF it, and it'll become official. 24th, you'll see Hess come through. Same thing. So we're to that point. All right. Excuse me. Last, I know Rick talked about sharing news. I'm sure you all heard, but Hopkinton in the news. Man, that came out of nowhere. Excuse me. U.S. News rankings came out. Hopkinton is in 4th place. I know that as I'm new here, that aggravated a lot of people, which I understand. So what we're going to do is, and Becca and I already talked about diving into the why. Why did we move down? But it's sometimes other people move up, as we talk about. Not everyone is the starter on the baseball team, so things of that nature. So we're going to take a look and figure out how that is, but again, it's a compliment to the parents of the community, the students of the community. Something like that is not just us, that's everyone involved. So it certainly is everyone. So with that, I'm going to pass to Michelle. I know she's got quite a few things for you tonight.
do.
Yeah.
So the first thing is we have 2 donations from the Huffington Pta asking for the board to approve. One is for $520 for the 3rd grade Squam Lake field trip, and the other is for $720 for the 2nd grade Montshire Museum field trip. Thank you to them, and so that's being asked tonight for approval. The next item is the financial statement for April that's in the pack, not in the packet, but on the website. Right now, what I actually did is I added another line to take out the $150,000 that we also obligated during the budget process, so that we didn't have to keep remembering of subtracting it at the bottom. So based on what we committed during the budget process of $525 to go to capital reserve funds and $150 to reduce the tax rate, we will have $527,443 additional on that. So of that, some people might ask, what amount can we put into Article 10, because we're going to look to take away. So it would be about $505,829. So in essence, looking at this equation, it could be backfilled.
Great.
And be at the max. And again, that is 5% of the net assessment. And that is, the net assessment is determined from our budget and what we get for revenues. And the state certifies that. So if there's no questions on the financials, then I can move on. But is there any questions on the financials?
I love the new line item that you did.
Oh, good.
Love it.
Great.
Makes it
Because I was, confusing myself. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, so the next item is, and I added a new document. I'll probably, when it's a lot of things that I'm going to talk about, I'll probably do that because, number one, I don't want to forget. But number 2, I want to make sure you guys have enough information for the board approval. So the first item is waiving the bid policies. We had 2 RFPs out, one for groundwork district-wide. the other for the emergency generator for the Harold Martin School fire pump. Unfortunately, both of those pre-bid meetings, nobody attended. So it was posted in the Concord Monitor. We had it on our website. So I do know, that staff in different area is short, and that's why in the past we've heard that we haven't got responses. But what I'm asking for is the board to waive the bid policy so that we can go out and look for a couple quotes. So then we'll come back to the board if we're gonna decide. But so that this doesn't kind of drop on the wayside, and but in order to do that, because I know it's going to be above the bid threshold, I'm asking that the board waive the policy.
And the real reason, again, RFPs are good and bad. Not surprised that no landscaping company took hours to put together an RFP, but I bet you if we call 3 of them, they're going to show up and look for the work. So that would help us solicit that information.
Great. The next item is I'm looking for the board to grant approval for the bid that we had out for the classroom audio. So there are 2 options. I did include that in the drive as well. And Matt is currently evaluating these because this did come in early. It came in yesterday because there was only one qualified respondent that could do it because they had to go to the pre-bid meeting and there was only this one. So waiting until May 24th would be a detriment to us. Number one, getting the work done, but number 2, having the price go up potentially. So what we're looking for is the board to approve up to the maximum of $133,917, and that's to CCS. Now, one thing to keep in mind is $90,000 was earmarked for the building project. So in the next item, we're going to talk about a little bit of where that difference is going to come from. So before we move on to the next item, is everybody okay with that item?
I think we want to do each one of these one at a time. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think we'll start with waiving
list
bid
here.
policy
Okay.
for, no, because you have a lot.
I
And
do.
I don't
Yeah, I
want it,
know.
I don't want it to get misrepresented, so.
So can I make a motion to waive the bid policy for the groundwork?
Yep. Grounds.
Ground.
Yes.
Yeah,
Grounds, I'll second that.
I put groundwork, but it is
Okay.
grounds, yeah.
Is there another one we gotta waive, or is it that the only one?
We'll do them one
We're
at a
gonna
time.
start
one at a time.
with, start with just that one. Okay, so there's been a motion, a second. Any discussion? Dulcie, can you hear too?
Yep, all good.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, great, so waived.
All right.
So then looking for the board to do the same for the emergency generator for the Harold Martin School fire pump.
So I'd make a motion to waive the bid policy for the emergency generator for HMS fire pump.
I'll second.
Excellent. All right, there's been a motion and second. Any discussion? No? All in favor?
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Okay,
So the next item would be granting approval of the bid from CCS in the amount up to $133,917 for the classroom audio RFP. And the funds to come from the Berlin project. I don't know if that, you guys want to have that in there.
Yeah, so you can, so I'll make the motion for us to waive grant approval of this contract up to 140.
So we actually have an RFP, so it's not waiving.
Oh, okay, so it's
So it's granting.
granting.
Yep,
Okay.
for up to $133,917 to CCS.
okay, so Norm's made the motion that we pay up to the $133,917. Is there a second?
That sounds
Second.
like my motion.
Great. Any discussion?
Yeah, I want to make it clear, this was part of the building project and promised to the taxpayers. So this, we're not throwing money at this, this is us finishing the project. We had set this money aside from day one, and now we're finishing it. So I want to make that clear.
Excellent.
All right.
Any other comments? No? Okay, hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Great. So the last item, and I don't know if Rob, you want to take this and run with it, or I'll just start it and then see if Rob wants to. At the last board meeting, we did have a public hearing about the excess funds that we have from the building project in the amount of $406,043.77. We've been soliciting input. We've not received any input. And as discussed back then, it was to really look at things in the CIP as well as what was promised in the building project. Rob, did you want to?
I think that's the intent, and it's going to allow us to just be a little more versatile with those funds.
Great. So then the items that we know that we need to do something about, taking into the account that amount I just talked about that we had left, $119,000, we did have the RFP for flooring. Nobody did respond to it. We did have the board waive the bid policy. We did have one of the vendors that was, during the building project, a flooring vendor. They came out and gave us a quote of $119,000. So what this would do is the remaining classrooms as well as office areas like the high school office and the Maple Street office, that they would have their carpet replaced.
Harold Martin Library.
Yes, Harold Martin Library. Yep, there's multiple areas.
What was the square footage roughly? 17,000 square feet?
Yeah. It was a lot of area.
And it'll be the same quality that we provided for all
Yes,
the-
it's the same, it's the Flowtech,
It's the carbon
which is the
squares.
one that you have the squares, that it's very easily to replace it than doing regular carpet. The second item is, as the board just approved, thank you very much, for up to $133,917 for the classroom audio. That is $43,917 more than we had held aside. So I'm just trying to make this easy for everybody to understand how we're going to come to the bottom line. So that amount is there. The next item we've talked about before, we had an RFP out for our boiler at Harold Martin, the oil one, that's about 20 years old. The vendor has given us notice that it is going to fail and they don't recommend it to be reliable for the next heating season. So we did go out, we actually went out for multiple things. We went out for oil, propane, and design build. The one item we got for the design build was actually a wood chip product, which was just under $1 million for that price, unfortunately. That could not be something that we could consider with what we were looking at for funds available to us. So then we evaluated the oil and the propane, and I'm talking about, we evaluated, so it was the CIP committee, Rob, Dulcie, Mike, myself, also Jay, I think weighed in some as well. So one thing to keep in mind is Harold Martin already has a propane boiler, and so this was the oil burner. So a good thing to have is flexibility with having a different source and not having it be propane. So if the propane is high, we can rely more on the oil. There's also, I know I've been working with Dick Henry, who is big on sustainability and stuff. And when I talked to him today, he liked the idea of us going with an oil product rather than a propane product with our limited options, quite honestly.
Yeah.
Because we have a short window to make sure that we have the boilers we need for next heating season and the money that we have. So we did ask for the company that we were looking at, which was Denron, update the oil pricing because it was a few months old, and it was under $1,000 that the pricing went up. So we're looking at $57,182 to be given approval for the Harold Martin boiler.
Do you want to expand on that, the boiler? That's a good snapshot of the process.
I think the key one is that the alternative energy, the biomass, was just at a price tag that was, not feasible in any way, shape, or form, and that's just speaks to why we have to look at this from a much broader lens if we're going to go in that direction.
So with all these things on this list, the remaining balance is about 185. What is the CIP's plan for the next 6 months or so with these funds? Because we have, what, until next July to use them all, if I recall?
Yeah, me or you, it's up to you.
Well,
So
we're
really, these were the first couple things that we wanted to check off the box.
Okay.
So it was the boiler for sure, the flooring was an interest.
We have the cow wall issue. We have to-
Exactly.
That was so that's the
Yeah.
next look. We have Michelle, you have a second opinion coming in. I'll take what you guys said earlier about the product person selling us their problem. So we're getting a second opinion. So a second opinion is coming in to evaluate it, and then we'll solicit. Do we have to bid that out, Michelle?
No, because it's a cow wall system, so I think it's pretty defined that if
Yeah.
we're doing the exact same thing, it would be a sole source, because there really would be, yeah.
So that'll be the next money thing that we're gonna evaluate. So
And this is the plastic.
I'll call it the plasticky
see-through
stuff. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
in all
Because
this.
I did not know what it was. I was like, I don't know what is
Theoretically
What kind of wall is
translucent
wrong?
material, yes.
the yellow.
And I'm gonna wait till you have your meeting, because, you know, when I was sitting here doing the numbers, you know, if we do 5% for the unreserved fund balance, that leaves us only with like 20,000 as a one-time purchase for, you know, what we'd wanna do. If you guys decide to make a recommendation up to 5%. And this amount, since it's going to CIP, would help alleviate pressure in it, because in the past, we've taken money from the unreserved fund balance and put it into the repair and maintenance for certain things. So it's just, I'm just throwing numbers at my, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think, Dulcie can chime, I don't think we can speak too much until we know what's going on with the
Yeah,
cow wall and what
of
that's gonna cost, because those numbers ranged from 70,000 at Maple Street, and I don't think we ever got a number at the middle high school, so just knowing the amount of material between the
Right.
two, it's gonna be the same or more. So that would pretty much chew up our remaining balance of what we've got from the building project.
All right, so tonight, though, you do need approval for essentially the top three things, using our excess building project funds to pay
I
for
would think so,
flooring, additional funds for classroom audio RFP, and the HMS boiler replacement.
Yeah.
Oil.
I mean, it's the board's decision, but my thought would be that yes, and every time we are gonna do something from the funds, correct me if I'm wrong too, Rob and Dulcie, we'd be coming back, you know, kind of be transparent and open and
Yep.
like, letting people know how we're using the excess funds.
Yep. Yeah, and that,
And
yeah.
what, oh, go ahead, Andrea.
No, you go.
Oh, I was gonna say, one of the things, that we can do, and I know we're doing this for sort of the end of year stuff, but is, present a more fleshed out review, like something that Rob did was sort of that like tiered system for like 3 stratum of time looking forward. And so we can, take a look at that, talk through it, so everyone on the board and hopefully also the public has a really good idea of like now, next, further.
Yep.
Is what I'll sort of call it.
Yeah, that'll be the end of the year for CIP.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's why we had the public hearing, and that's why we've had all these steps to make sure that.
Well, I'll make the motion that we approve the use of building project funds for the audio system, for the flooring, and for the Harold Martin School boiler as noted.
Second.
Excellent. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Can I just ask a question, because I'm curious,
No.
Michelle, what was, I'm just curious what the cost of the propane boiler, or at least what the
Yeah,
quote
I actually have that.
It was like $10,000 difference.
Okay.
I think it was
Yeah,
like 10.
so,
Higher or lower?
the propane one was 62,320.
So it was more.
Yep, it was.
Great.
Thank you.
Yep.
And then the pellet was $9.90.
Yeah, something, yeah, that's why I just rounded it up.
Not gonna spend $1 million.
No, it wasn't $1 million. You can't say it was $1 million. It was $9.90.
No, yes.
Okay, all right. So, any other questions, comments?
That's great.
Yeah, thank you for that clear
I don't think we took the
explanation too about the boiler.
We got
Don't
the-
worry,
we got-
I'm getting there.
Oh, okay.
Hold your horses. All right, hearing no other comments other than the words that were coming out of my mouth, is there, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, any opposed?
And that's all I have.
All right, motion carries.
You're welcome.
So we
Thanks.
have to now make a motion to accept the rest of the consent agenda as
Yep.
presented.
Great, so is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented by Superintendent Flynn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion, questions? Cast your brain back. No? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you. All right, so we are up to public comment. And did we put out a sheet tonight?
I did not because I forgot
There
everything.
was no sheet.
I can put a piece of
There's
paper.
no plaques, there's no.
Jody was not here, clearly. So, but we're still doing great. So if there's any public comment, folks are welcome to come up. You just need to state your name and address. You're welcome to share your thoughts with us. Someone's coming. Catherine's coming. Great.
Catherine Matteo, 108 Park Ave. I think Rick had mentioned it when you guys were on the item about the sustainability. So we do have, it's in the facilities and grounds pillar bucket.
Bucket,
He
thank
calls it a bucket, I call it a pillar. We do have the goal number 4 about reviewing the latest research and best practices around sustainability efforts for their potential impact and implementation in the district. And the objective is establish and maintain a district-wide committee inclusive of key district personnel and community stakeholders to determine the need and potential impact of new and existing sustainability efforts in the district. So I know you guys were talking about the committee thing, and I just wanted to say, like, we all kind of worked really hard on that, and that was like a huge part of the input. So that's in here. So
Are you volunteering
yeah.
again? Are you volunteering
I'd be
for
happy
next-
to, actually. So I work for a company that's in the construction industry, and I just read a 200-plus manual on the carbon impact of a building from cutting down the trees to its demolition 100 years later. Yeah, so I would be happy to, but anyway, I just wanted to, so thank you.
Great, thanks, Catherine. Anyone else?
Hey, everybody. Yeah, Bob Matteo, 108 Park Ave. On the sustainability, I just wanted to comment. I heard a lot of good comments and concerns coming from this group right here as you were going through them. As somebody who works in renewable energy, that's my field. I think some of the concerns, right from the beginning, Jim, as we go down the line, Jim, Rob, Norm, Andrea, your concerns, I think, are well-founded. Some of them, I think it's a great goal to have, but there can be some challenges, with implementing something like that. Things that may seem like they're renewable when you dig under the covers may not be as so, and it's very easy to. When you talk to an energy consultant, they're going to pitch you what they have, what they're selling. So I think you guys are on. What I'm really trying to say is I think you're on the right track with your concerns and kind of how you're going, and also the thoughts about financial sustainability and the management of the facilities and all those things are. Other ways to look at, just a broader scope than renewable energy. And I think when you get into that, and that committee is going to have a lot of fun. I know when I get into the field, certain things that I thought were just kind of standard, or just these are how they're done. When you dig into the science and the construction of it, you find out, oh, that's not really sustainable at all. Like certain options can be. So Good job on that. I think that you're on the right track as far as I'm concerned. Thanks.
Thanks, Bob.
Good evening, Lauren Clement. A lot of nuts and bolts today. Good meeting. Like to start off on a warm note. I got home today and I had 3 out of my 4 children extremely excited about field trips. We have kids going on field trips. So since there was no students speaking, why not represent our students? Because that's what we're all here for. The lines on the parking lots at the Maple Street School and at this school look really well. I haven't seen Harold Martin. I'm gathering maybe it got a new paint job as well, but it was overdue and looks great. I'm not sure I want to frame all this, but I had a question about Finance Committee meeting coming tomorrow. Looking on the district website, a lot of the minutes are missing. The time moves around. I know tomorrow's 9:30 at the SAU. I don't know if that's open to the public meeting. It doesn't work for me to go there. But I was interested in line item 6, tracking employment savings with the hiring process. We've talked a lot about that tonight. It correlates to the curriculum director, as you explained at the last meeting, in the hiring process of them. And I'm wondering, will there be minutes? Are they going to get posted? And hopefully they are. And on my research, again, through various documents on the district website, I, as well as others, have been finding when you go to pull open a Google Doc website, it says you need some sort of Google authorization, and then you submit something, and maybe you hear back, and maybe you can open it, and then I don't know when it gets open, but it's a little frustrating, and that may be part of being down an IT tech person. I don't know, but I'm just would like to make a note that it's frustrating trying to do research and then hitting a brick wall on something that's supposed to be there. Next, facilities director was brought up multiple times tonight. Restructuring process, if we have a facilities director with the sustainability. I did notice that was under the employment position and had closed out, but the description on there was very similar to what the current facilities director was doing and not what was discussed in the budget process, and I'm wondering why that is. I know it's not Q&A, but it's something worth noting. We're now hiring someone that was doing the same job and not what we discussed during the early budget stage of being a manager, and I know that comes with a price tag. On E, sustainability discussion, which we had a lot of discussion about, I believe Henniker put solar panels on their K through 8 school in Henniker, and I want to say the first year winter was not nice and the snow melted on the solar panels, created a lot of water, and they ended up having a school closing with an unexpected, how do we get up there and deal with it? So as Bob had just stated, with moving forward, there can also be hiccups. That was one for them, and I'm not sure how they remedied it, but I remember seeing a lot of operations going on in the middle of winter on one of those freak days, but that's cause and effect that couldn't happen. We heard a lot about sustainability, and I do want to reference back to curriculum director, which we obviously have now hired. I don't know how if it got buttoned up, but on our when we did the budget proposal, the first proposal under the superintendent's perspective said the administration will also work towards increasing the transparency of district expenditures and provide the taxpayers with rationale and justification for said funds. The community trust is a vital part to the success of any school district. I believe such trust is garnered through good decision-making and fiscal transparency. And when I asked about the curriculum director position, we found funding through savings, which now is becoming more transparent that quite a few people have retired. We saw 2 today. But the posting for that job was March 23rd, which was 4 days after our district meeting. And it would seem to me, as a taxpayer that sat through all this, not the parent who thinks a curriculum director is a good idea, I'm struggling with this transparency that 4 days later, one being a Sunday, that we now list an opening for a curriculum director when the budget was just passed. And if there's savings there and it was that close, why didn't we squeak that in the budget, or at least attempt to squeak it in the budget? Maybe the funds weren't there at that point, because I know that closes ahead of time, but I'm still struggling with that. I didn't ask the right questions last time because I was kind of taken back by that, because I have sat through all this. So I just want to remind the transparency part. This is the opportunity for most of us to get information is at these school board meetings. We don't go to all the behind closed door meetings and the website. So if we can't access Google Documents and we don't hear it here at the presentation, when do we hear it? So those are my comments for this evening. Thank you.
Just on 2 points for you, Lauren. So board committee meetings, we are also governed by the Right to Know laws, the RSA 91A, and so community members are welcome to attend and sit in and listen. There's no public comment portion of committee meetings or really work meetings, but community members are welcome to attend them. And just another way for folks to get particular questions answered at any time during the week, we have all of our emails posted, and I also make my cell phone available really to anyone who reaches out. I'm always more than welcome. I think I speak for fellow board members as well as our superintendent to answer any particular questions as well. So, and I do understand though that this is our public meeting for the board to engage in our board business.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Is there a reason that it's at the finance committee meetings at 9:30? Okay, you gotta squeeze them in, but I've seen in the past it was at 4. I could cut out of work and get a 4 o'clock, but 9:30, I almost was gonna cut out of work, but now I have something pressing. Because I wanted to hear that. Some of them were recorded, some there are minutes, the last 2 blank on the, and I don't know if that's just falling through the cracks, but again, moving forward on being more transparent, it's not.
Yeah, I think part of the, Dulcie and I sit on both CIP and finance, and sometimes those agendas essentially merge as one. So that's probably why you didn't see the finance piece. We will clean up the business about the meeting minutes not being posted or not being available. In terms of the time, folks have jobs, so we're working around people's, schedules and whatnot, and it's oftentimes what works for everybody. So that's, it's not always 9:30, sometimes it's 9, sometimes it's 8, but it's generally not late afternoon because it's just not something that's workable for most folks.
Looking back, some had audio, one had audio, one had video, and then there's a lot of nothing. If you had an audio or video recording, that would be substantial and we could listen to it.
Yeah. During the pandemic, we were doing things in a lot of different ways, so that was the audio and the video piece. Yeah.
Great. Is there any other public comment?
I had a question.
Sure.
Nobody else.
You don't pop on down, otherwise I'll be doing this.
It's Bob at 108 Pta. I was listening.
We gotta get closer to the mic. People can hear you at home.
It's Bob at Matteo, 108 Park Ave, for the record. Listening to Michelle and Mike talk about the struggles with the RFP process. I've had similar problems in the last 2 years where literally can't give money away on 6-figure projects at times, and it's been a real struggle. even this year, I've had vendor meets where, again, they simply refuse to show up for whatever reason. So I had, I guess, a thought and a question. Do you see this continuing? Because I still see this in our fields, this struggle continue. That kind of process breakdown is still an issue for us in the energy field, getting some contracts fulfilled. And the other, I guess the question I had, would an RFI process help that along? It has helped us in certain situations where we start throwing RFIs out before our, an RFPs, and I don't know if that can be. It's just a question. Thanks.
Do we want to, are you able to speak to it at all?
So I can tell you just on the RFPs that we have done recently, yeah, we're not getting the response that we used to. My hope is in the near future that would change, but I'm not sure. So as far as why we do RFPs and not RFIs, really I go by best practices based on what I've heard from school attorneys that I've done conferences at and stuff, and for contract purposes, they've always said to do RFPs instead of RFIs or RFQs even. So I can, the next time I'm talking with them so we don't incur any, or I've gone to a PD event, I will recheck to see if anything's changed on that matter, but that's really why we've done that.
Excellent. All right. Well, I think that's it for public comment. Okay, so we're moving on to other business, old business, committee updates.
We have a budget committee. I can go first.
Sure.
So we had a meeting a couple weeks ago. Mark St. Kel is the chair and Jonathan Cohen's the vice chair. The budget committee congratulated us on passing our budget in a pretty quick meeting. They were extremely pleased that the teacher's contract passed and that there was like clear sailing because they really supported our teachers and their contract, which is really great to hear. They made it very clear that they want us to follow the same budgeting process we did last year. They liked the idea of us going in there, showing them preliminary budget, and being able to show them what is on our radar and what we're looking to do. They said there's a trust here with us in the budget committee that they want to see that move forward, which I thought was great to hear because they understand our budgeting process. They understand what we're doing. When I discussed with them, the curriculum director, they understood exactly how we got the money. They commended Mike on following our new hiring practices and how we are changing that, looking at using the retirement as a benefit and bringing in a new teacher as a savings, and then applying that to the position. When Mike was there, he made very clear to the budget committee, give me a number to work with for the budget, and I will find a way to spend it. Of course, as a board, we can always say no to the position. That is our job. We hire who he puts on in there. And each one of them understood where the savings came, and they understand that there's other avenues down there that Mike's going to do in choices when it comes to making the budget. They made it also very clear that they don't want to see a non-reserve fund balance at the end of the year. Part of that is Mike doing his job, spending what the town has given him. Part of that practice is if he thinks that he needs to hire a specific position, boom, he's going to use what he has, which reduces our unreserved fund balance and shows the community that we're using the money at good faith. I made it clear to them that there was no, Mike is committed, there was no budget increase with those specific position, which I think was really important because you don't hire a position with the anticipation, in this case, where we're going to have an increase for next year. So it was really a compliment to you, Mike, on your first budgeting process, that it went really smooth, and then a compliment to this board that we were able to get through town meeting in 90 minutes. It was great to see, and they said to continue what we're doing. They look forward to seeing us later on this year, but they really strongly encouraged us to follow the same process. So.
Great.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Do you have any, Jim? Okay. Sorry.
I had one more thing. I'm sorry. So there's a little bit of stuff still with the building project that probably needs to get tied up a little bit. I just wanted to ask the board, it's okay if we had like a little bit of non-meeting. There's the people we need, not us, but some of the building project people need to kind of tie up on a couple of things. I think, Michelle, would that help you a little bit, you think?
Mm-hmm.
Mike, would you be in support of that?
Yeah, I don't even. Yeah,
I just want to make sure that it was dissolved.
Yeah.
And I just want to know it'd be like a
To me, I'm calling a meeting to finish the building project.
Okay, and I just want to make sure you guys are aware I'm doing that, because there's some things that we need to tie up.
That's fine.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Sure. So finance is going to meet tomorrow, and I just wanted to kind of run down what the agenda items are and, where we're looking to go. So discussion about prices for preschool and food pricing or food service as we sort of maneuver between what we receive in revenue, what we get from the government, how that all works. Next one is a little bit, may sound odd, but framing the 23-24 budget in the context of SB2 defaults. So like, what would that look like if we did that? And then in part to get people to understand what an SB2 default budget means, and that when we're putting together budgets, that our contractual growth is a big part of the mindset. So just kind of that dynamic and how they interact with one another. The third item is a programmatic view or request for a programmatic view of athletics. So as we redid the process, we did that by school and by department and by grade level. So now I think oftentimes we hear questions about the cost of athletics, so folks can see the overall budget, transportation, uniforms, et cetera, and then by sport, they'll get a better understanding of what that is, and hopefully understand that all sports are not equal. There's varying costs, obviously. A discussion about tracking employment savings with the hiring process and how we will report that out at the end of I don't know when we would do that, Mike. Perhaps we would do that at the end of the year, but at some point we would share that with the community. The next one is the concept of, we have contracts with Hess and we have contracts with HEA and with Teamsters that perhaps setting an administrative pool increase over a period of time. So we've heard a lot about long-term planning from the Budget Committee, and if we sort of dial into that same sort of concept and saying, okay, I'm not going to use a number because I don't have a number, but whether that's 1.5% to 2.5%, what that would look like over a 3-year span, and commit to that as a board as a way of planning for the future. And does that make sense? Then discussion about Article 10 funds and where we're at with that. And then Norm sent me a request to add to the agenda a discussion about unreserved fund balance flow chart, so that we're showing perhaps quarterly how, if we are accessing what it would be in the unreserved fund balance during the year, and sharing that with the community. Sort of what happens in the audit, but in smaller chunks. So that's tomorrow's agenda, and we will make sure that the minutes are up and running. And if you think of anything on your way home that you want added, let me know.
Great.
Thank you.
It's a big agenda.
That is a big agenda. Good luck.
For 9:30.
Exactly.
Great. And I don't
It's
have
only 4 hours.
any updates since our last meeting. Our curriculum committee is meeting on May 17th. And policy is meeting this Friday, although maybe not, because we're just about done. So, all right, great. Anything else? Dulcie, do you have anything? Any other business? Oh, I can't hear you. Hold on.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. No, I mean, we talked about some of the CIP stuff, but we'll have a meeting between now and our next school board meeting, which will be scheduled and posted. And then we'll do an update then.
Perfect.
At the next one.
Great. All right. So we do have, where am I? We do have a need for non-public tonight under RSA 91A: 3, 2A for, hold on, Jim.
Jim has a memorized.
personnel, thank you, I always forget what it's called, and C for reputation. Trying to make a movement, yes, okay. So, I'm gonna move that we go into non-public under RSA 91A, :3, 2, A for personnel, and C for reputation.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? No? And this is a roll call vote? Look at me, Jim, I'm getting it. All right, I'm gonna start with you.
Yes. Norm Gupel, yes.
Rob Nato, yes.
Andrew Folsom, yes?
Dulcie La Palma, yes.
Great. All right, and with that, thank you all very much for coming tonight.
Michelle.